So all right, so the agenda for today is as follows. We will start with setting the base for Scrum. We will continue to see and learn the theory behind Agile and Scrum implementations. We will learn how does a typical Scrum process unveil itself in an organization. We will see some of the Scrum Matrices, and we will end it up with a summary and questions. So I hope this is an agenda that you came for. In case you have anything else on your mind that you wanted to discuss today and you do not see on agenda, right now may be a good time to actually go ahead and put that in the chat window. If time allows us, we will be looking at that, but this is the schedule that I have for today. So use your chat window if you have anything else to discuss, and we will be eagerly trying to answer them as well. All right, so before we begin before we begin with other details, I'll just like to quickly launch a poll for you, and just trying to understand the audience today. Could you just take a moment to take this poll and let us know the years of experience that you have? All you have to do is to click on the appropriate option that is visible to you. So I will give it a second as you go and answer these questions. If you have not yet voted, take a minute to just quickly let us know your experience level. All right, so this is great. We have a mixed audience. Most of you, and that is almost about 45% of you, come from 10 to 15 years of experience. So that is awesome. And we have about 5 to 10 years of experience. That's the next section of people. All right. Thank you so much for putting this or taking this poll. I have another question for you so that we can tailor the presentation as we go forth. This is to understand your current state of Agile adoption in your organization. The options are provided. If you're already working on Agile, I would request you to choose option number 2. If you are evaluating Agile at this time, or if you've not looked for, a new process that in your organization, you may choose 1 or 3. Okay, so I'll give it another 5-10 seconds. All right, this is great. We have the results in. Almost 50% of you have said that you are evaluating Agile, and about 30% of you have said that you're already using Agile. So what I'm getting a sense of is you may already be familiar with the Agile process, and you may be looking more for what TeamPulse as a tool can do for your organization. So while we have a lot of material on the Scrum process, we'll try and quickly move through this so that we can talk more and more and see more and more of the TeamPulse tool in action. All right, so thank you for taking the poll, and this has given us good grounding of how we can proceed. All right, so the first step to any Scrum is to set up the Scrum project, or whenever you receive a project, the first thing anybody wants to do is set up some Scrum. I have a screenshot there that basically shows you as you're looking at various projects in your organization, what is the end result you may be expecting. And why am I talking about end result right at the beginning of the presentation? Is so that you know what you are setting yourself up for. In this screenshot, you can see that I have multiple projects mentioned on this one I would say screenshot. The projects are named as CRM Rewrite, Corporate Directory, Mobile Payments, HR Portal, and in this you're looking at the Burndown charts on the right-hand side. These little graphs that you see in the CRM Rewrite, you'll see the same on the top of the screen. And at the bottom of the screen is exactly, or for each of the projects, you can see the same. So, all right, that was an unintended movement there. Sorry about that. All right. So what you will see is in detail, this is the Burndown chart that you may be more concerned with across various projects. This is what you ultimately want to achieve so that you are able to track the progress of the project that you are currently managing. You can see in this project you are seeing blocking bugs or blocking issues, and you're seeing how much time has elapsed, what is the estimated completion, and God forbid this should never be the condition, which is will never finish. What is the total estimate, what are the late stories entered after an iteration started. So this is your one dashboard that gives you a quick view into all the details that you may be concerned with as a project manager, and the same is true for individual projects. I have expanded the CRM Rewrite project, but as you can see, I'm able to see more than one project at the same time and quickly able to get a view of how it is progressing at any time. So my mobile payments project seems all right. You can see it is marked as on time. So this is pretty much all right. Well, there is something which is here which hasn't, which is no detail, which means we are not able to predict, or the tool is not able to predict at this time what could be the situation. This is prompting you 8 days late to take some action, and as you expand this, you will be able to create and see what is that you can do to make it on target. So this is sort of information that you may be looking for, and we are going to set ourselves up for achieving this result. Okay, so as we will go and see the tool in detail, I quickly wanted to move on to the second topic, which is what is Agile and Scrum in theory. I'm pretty sure you're already aware of the current process of waterfall. The way it is, it starts from system requirements, cascades down to analysis of those converting the system to software requirements, analysis, then designing it, then coding it, and testing, and finally quick deployment. So this was the methodology that's been followed for a while. The new way of actually using or doing software development is moving from a waterfall to the Agile methodology. The Agile methodology is nothing except breaking this big waterfall model into small bite-sized waterfall segments, so to say. But we use different methodologies to precisely get you out of the waterfall mindset. And we'll see more of this as we go forth. But essentially, this is what you've been doing, and what we are advocating is the Agile process, which is taking bite-sized pieces of the waterfall model and doing it in an iterative fashion. So let's quickly look at some of the principles on which the Agile process was founded. Now, the Agile process was all about discovering new ways of doing things and incrementally implementing them as we are doing our tasks, ultimately leading to continuous improvement as we go from iteration to iteration. So it's all about learning from the earlier iteration and quickly implementing it in the iteration that follows through. So as I said, it's about taking bite-sized pieces. The advantage of taking bite-sized pieces is you're able to chew on it simply, and you're also able to work on that in an iterative fashion by implementing the learnings of what has happened in the past, thereby improving the project and continuously improving it till the conclusion of the project. Now, here are some of the things that the people who brought Agiles into the world said. This is what we're trying to do. They said we will prefer some things over the other. So what they said was we will prefer thinking about individual and interactions over processes and tools. Then they said we will prefer working software over writing comprehensive documentation. We more like customer collaboration than just, sitting on contract tables and negotiating it. We are much more interested in responding to change than following a plan. So what they meant was, while all the things on the right have a lot of importance, they are important as well, we are going to switch to the things on the left and try and tailor our processes to the left rather than the right. The reason is simple. They want to try and improve the way software is being developed today, because things that are there on the right is the traditional way of how things have been. But with Agile adoption, they wanted everybody to focus on things on the right. Now, while it is just a slide, it may be unnerving for an organization to let go of the comprehensive documentation that one is actually used to, but it's not to let go of one thing. It's just about shifting focus from comprehensive documentation to working software. All right, so I hope that has given you the idea behind Agile. Now, one of the methodologies within Agile is called Scrum. So very quickly, what is Scrum? Scrum is a simple way of implementing Agile in your organization. It uses iterative and incremental approach. It helps to show to customer value early on and very frequently, so the customer knows what is that is being built for him or her. It also looks at continuously improving things from day one, and ultimately at the end of the project, it is something that advocates improvement of the process, learning from the cycle earlier. It uses a team which is self-organizing, and we'll talk more about teams as we go forth. And it's actually it is focused on delivering the end product, or in Scrum methodology called an increment. So it focuses on producing something usable at the end of an iteration, and it will this iteration or the increment that we produce is obviously based on the highest priority item that the business identifies. Now notice the word when I said business rather than what developer deems most important. And to help this prioritization in place, we have specific roles in the team that take care of that. So we will get into that, but because we've not seen a process diagram yet, this being a Agile process session, this is how a simple view of Agile can be seen as. Okay, so in this you will see, you can start looking at it from the light bulb. This is the vision of what you want to build. Now the vision is translated into a set of requirements, so to say, which in Agile terms or in Scrum terms is called product backlog. Now why is it put as Lego blocks there is because the individual items in product backlog are individual work items or things that are to be built as a unit. Now the backlog itself is not only about putting what to build, but it is also about prioritizing in 100 things what to build first. Now this is what the product backlog is. Now in the next step, what we do is we take a bite or a chunk out of this product backlog. We say that in a particular time frame, we are going to be doing these 3 or 4 tasks. Now this piece of work that is identified from the big product backlog is called the sprint backlog. Now in this sprint backlog, we take a subset of the product backlog, and in most cases, they will be the top 3 to 4 or the most or the items of highest priority as put in the product backlog. So if I'm saying things that are not immediately, you can't visualize them, please do not worry, because that's what we have the rest of the presentation about. For now, just think about how the flow is getting through. So in the sprint backlog, there is a subset of items taken out from the product backlog. Now, once we have something which is small and doable, we actually run it through what we call a sprint. A sprint is a time box, or I would put it this way, it's limited within a time. So the amount of work that you're going to pull from the product backlog is only going to be the amount of work that you think you can finish in a particular sprint. A sprint can be a time frame of between 2 to 4 weeks. Generally 4 weeks are a great time frame that we can refer to for doing a sprint. So in 2 to 4 week sprint, you will actually, or the team will actually continue to work. We have the concept of the self-organizing team. So what we mean here is you've got to trust your team a little more than how it was in the traditional waterfall world, because the team itself is supposed to have all the resources, and when I say all the resources, I only mean the knowledge and the tools to complete the task that is allocated to them, and they are the best people to actually think about technology. So it also assumes a certain set of maturity from its own developers or testers. So the team can be composed of a lot of people, so it's a fully functional unit. So when I said testers, the Agile or the Scrum methodology does not distinguish between let's say a complete developer or a tester separately. So everybody is in a team and they are a full functional unit capable of shipping a product increment. If it means design resources, if it means developer resources, if it means testing resources, if it means product SMEs, all of them are looked at as one in a particular increment. You are free, however, to change the composition of the team from sprint 1 to sprint 2, depending on the increment that you're trying to produce. So the last box that you see is the product increment that the team will produce. Now, during this sprint, there is a small piece which is also shown, which is called Daily Scrum. It essentially is a small 15 minutes meeting between the team members every day to make sure everything is on track. All right, so that is all about the process itself. We've seen how the Scrum and Agile process was invented, what are the basics of it. We'll now focus on doing the Scrum process and taking a deeper look at it. So I'm going to take another minute to see some of the questions that may have come through and see if anything I'll find worth answering. Okay. I see a question on from oh, it's a good question actually, and it asks who identifies the first 4 tasks to be completed. It's a brilliant question, but I want you to hold on for a while because we have not yet gone into the Scrum process where we will see in detail who are the people responsible. So we just hold on for a second there, and you'll have your answer after we finish the section on the Scrum process. The next question is about more examples on what to talk and what not to talk in a Scrum update. All right, so again, we are going to talk more about the Scrum process. That was a very, just a very quick view. So before you have more questions, I think it's best that we hold on for a little while because we have more details coming up. Okay, so as we are going to go look deeper into the Scrum process, I also want you to see how the Scrum process can look like from a tools perspective, because as you're looking at the specific Scrum events, Scrum ceremonies, Scrum artifacts. You want to see how that translates into a visible representation delivered through a tool. So from here on, we're actually going to step into TeamPulse as an example of how the Scrum process can really flow. Okay, so I will make references to TeamPulse from here on so that I can bring the process to life and just not talk, theory at all. All right, so when I'm going to switch into the process in a minute, but I really want you to think about as you're doing anything in your day, what you're looking at is these three things. Okay, one, either you're actually delivering some work, which is you're writing code, you are, let's say, debugging something, or if you are a SME, you're writing your requirements, or if you are a designer, you're actually designing the prototype. That's work. In the second phase, you're planning, and this is just a cycle, so anything can happen at any time. So you probably would want to start with a plan. So in the planning phase, you're looking at what amount of work do I have, what amount of time do I have, and you allocate which work to do first. You want to break the work down into smaller tasks and things like those. So that is planning. Finally, you also want to analyze the work and the plan, and you want to compare the two so as to bring an understanding of how the work has progressed. Has it been as per the plan, or has it been, running out of the planning that you would have done? So these are primarily the three things that a person does as he's going and implementing anything in his day. So the tool that we are going to talk about today, I'll just take a minute to talk about it, it's called TeamPulse, and it's made by a company called Telerik. The Telerik, we kind of make a lot of developer tools right from planning stage to development in .NET, JSP, PHP, and even mobile development. We have tools for testing, we have tools for deployment. So we have tools in each area of the development lifecycle, and our focus is to make the experience of developers, of IT professionals much more productive. So our focus is, if you were going to take 10 days to do a task, be it planning, be it development, be it testing, we want to reduce it to as much as possible, and we generally are very successful in each of those phases. Telerik TeamPulse is our tool for Agile Project Management, and it will be the tool that we'll be using to demonstrate the whole Scrum process today. It is built for modern devices, which means it works beautifully well on your mobile phones, any platform. It is built with responsive design, so it will work even on tablets, and of course it works with laptops as well. It does not need a rich client for you to use, and hence you're not limited by what rich client is available for what device. It supports extreme flexibility, because most of the tools that you may think of, or even the scenarios that tools companies like us can think of, do not even begin to hold candle to the requirements that come from the field, or actually from the projects. So the way we have taken care of all of this is to make sure that we are extremely flexible to cater to your requirement with the help of custom fields. So if you think there is something missing from a particular item, you can add it as a custom field. And if you think that a particular view isn't available that you wanted to see in your favorite project management process, the TeamPulse will give you the flexibility to even create those views. TeamPulse currently integrates or has integrated feedback portal and time tracking. As we talk more and more Agile, you will see there are two things that I personally find not being emphasized enough. One is feedback, and second is communication. So feedback from your customers, feedback from your internal stakeholders, feedback from uh, even your own development team. So it is very important that all of the feedback is taken into consideration. The next, as I, sorry, give me a second. The second thing that I mentioned was communication. So while everybody talks about wonderful communication that is needed in an agile team, the tools generally fall short of this requirement of communication. Well, TeamPulse takes a lot of effort in making sure that both these aspects, feedback and communication, are taken well care of. So we'll see both of these aspects in action as well. And finally, we currently have Tfs Support, which is included in TeamPulse already. On our roadmap, you can actually see that by the or rather in a month or so, we will even have support for Git. So if you're looking to use TFS or Git in your organization, we have full support for both the source control systems. All right. So let us quickly first understand what is a Scrum team. So a Scrum team is composed of these three roles. The role number one is the product owner. Role number two is itself the team. I said we do not distinguish between who is a developer, who's a tester, who's a designer, who's a SME. It's just a team. And finally, the third role is the Scrum Master. So in a minute, a product owner is actually the person who's responsible for the success or failure of the whole project. The product owner is the one who owns the backlog. Now, when I say he owns the backlog, it means that product owner is the one who's going to be updating the backlog with the requirements. He's the one who's going to be saying which requirement or which story in Scrum terms is deemed to be of higher importance and which is deemed to be of lower importance. So ultimately, the product owner speaks with the product users and gets the feedback from them and from the business to make these decisions. He's going to look at what is required and what is more important, and he's going to be the one who's going to be putting in things in the product backlog. And as he moves and prioritizes tasks from up and below, the product team or the team here is the one who's responsible for pulling these individual items and taking them to completion or an increment. The team we've already talked about, they are the ones who are actually building the increment. The one difference here that I would like to highlight again is the team is I would say, a fully functional, self-contained team. So anything that you need as an increment or something that you need at the end of the sprint as a deliverable, you need to make sure that the team has all the resources or all the capabilities available in that particular team. If this means hiring or putting in a dev, if it means putting in a test, if it means putting in a business analyst, if it means putting in a designer, be it. So the team at that time will be composed of all four people. All four of them will together take decisions on how much work can they accomplish and how much work can they deliver with the definition of or how much work can they deliver in that particular increment that you have told them. And that increment time, however, you can decide. I would personally recommend, if you are somebody who's managing these deliverables, to let the team decide how much to deliver. If you take the opportunity to actually decide how much to deliver, the whole Scrum goes for a toss. It becomes something that the team does not sign up to. It becomes something that the team feels they're being pressurized into, and the whole Scrum process as such may fail because the spirit of the Scrum is not followed. Finally, there is a Scrum Master, who's the individual who makes sure that the product owner has full knowledge of how to put in the product backlog. He's the one who's making sure the team has all the resources, they understand what Agile is, they're implementing it. He's the one who's calling for the Scrum, daily Scrum meetings. He's the one who's only facilitating, not dictating anything in the Scrum team. So he's the one who's responsible for ensuring the process runs smoothly, and that if in case there is any bug, in case there is an issue or a risk that is identified in the Scrum team, he's the one who brings in or highlights it to the product owner, or takes actions to mitigate them. It's not to say that this is to happen at any point in time or by anybody, because it can be done by anybody. A team member can say to product owner that this is the requirement is not clear, please elaborate it further. The product owner may say that these are the 3 items that are of extreme importance, and things like those. So all of the communication here is extremely important, and this is one aspect that is never understood well for the success of the team. Now, TeamPulse, what it does is it provides a way of continuous communication, and this is how we implement it. It's called an activity stream. It's almost Twitter-like, so any action that is taken on the portal is actually highlighted for the whole team to see, so that anytime a check-in is made, or a new requirement is taken up, or the status of the requirement changes, which is, let's say, if it is from in progress to done, this is where the activity stream will highlight. So it opens up transparent communication for the team. The team can actually also talk to other people using the same Twitter notions, and this is how we think the communication can be improved. Now, different people have different ways of looking at communication. While some may be very comfortable with emails, some may just want to see it in the activity stream. So TeamPulse makes sure that you have what you need as per your own convenience, and it's extremely, again, customizable. If you want something as an email, it will reach you. If you just want something to be in the activity stream, it will just be in the activity stream, and you can configure these settings on a per project basis. Okay, so the next thing after the team is obviously the first thing, which is setting up the requirements. Now, what I'm going to do is probably I will switch to showing you the TeamPulse in action, and then we will come back to the slides. Hopefully, that would be a better approach. So give me a second as I move through and take a second to bring things up. Okay, so I'll also take a look at some of the questions that you have put on. I see actually 2 questions that have been put for us. The first one is about in which phase the design will happen in Agile projects. So the answer to that is the design happens in all phases of the project development, because as your stories are evolving, your design will also evolve. However, in the beginning of a project, you may have a need for more design. So you may actually run a full design iteration or a full design sprint. So in this initial sprint, you will gather your database designers, you will gather your senior architects, you will gather your product owners to actually quickly see what architecture suits the application the best. So this is the design phase, or you can call it the sprint design or the design sprint, and that's where the design will happen. I think the question about the first 4 tasks to be completed is also answered. It's clear that the PO is the person who actually creates or identifies these 4 tasks to be completed, and he or she is the one who also says which are those 4 tasks. Okay. Then there is a question on can I check the dashboard project report in browser by using live URL, same as we can? So you're asking, Jayesh, if you can see the project in the reports in the browser? Sure, you can, and we'll take a look at that also. You can. And there is a question on what is the advantage of using TeamPulse against MS Project? Well, the answer to that is very simple. I've said the MS Project really advocates the waterfall methodology, and in the waterfall methodology, everything was supposed to be planned right up front. So you create a plan for how many resources you need, how much time an iteration will take, and things like those. However, in Agile Project Management, the task is slightly different. The task is to create iteration. So if your initial project plan is for, let's say, 6 months, the Agile will say, we are going to complete these 6 months project in increments of 1 month each, and that each 1 month is a full project in itself. Now, in this 1 month project, the advantage is that you are able to learn from iteration 1, I'm just calling the iteration as the first month of your project, and implement the learnings of this project in project iteration number 2. Project iteration number 3, which is the third month, can benefit from learnings of iteration 1 and iteration 2. It also has an inherent advantage that as your requirements change from iteration 1 to 2 to 3, you are in a much better position to actually adapt to those changes than the traditional waterfall way. And MS Project as a tool has been excellent and very well used across years. It's a great tool for waterfall. However, today the reality is the Agile is what is more suited for projects of today, which come with a lot of change, which come with a lot of demand of the customer, so as to see, okay, show me what you've done for last 1 month. While the project may be for 6 months, they may want to see things much in advance. So that is pretty much how things look like, and that is the advantage of using TeamPulse over MS Project. All right, so let's move on. Please keep your questions coming. I will try and answer them as we go forth. So on your screens right now, you're looking at something that that looks very plain, but this is essentially TeamPulse, and the idea is to make the interface clutter-free so that there is minimum amount of clutter that is there. All right. So first things first. Let's try and create a new project. Let's say you just got a new project and you want to define a new project. So let's call it the Agile Webinar. And let's say we wanted to make a mobile application for the Agile Webinar. So what we're going to say is Agile Webinar Mobile, just something. And I'm just showing you these things so that this can come to life for you. Now, you can choose a start date. Let's say I will choose the project started on Monday for me, so I will choose 16th. There are, templates. You can choose whichever one you want. There is Agile, Agile 2012, Scrum, all of these, and then you can actually create your own template still. I'm just going to go with this normal TeamPulse template. What this will do is it will go in the back end and create certain I would say certain statuses, certain transitions from state A to state B. That's what a project template does. Now here is where you can actually go ahead and change some settings for the project. So for example, in this, it's saying what is the default iteration. So if I wanted to include something, I will just leave it at 14 days, but we talked about having iterations for 2 weeks to 4 weeks. It's up to you. This is where you can choose who are the project members. So you can look for a project member name. So I have a developer ninja here who I want to add as a team member. So I have added him or her, and he's now added as a project member. Now, in terms of teams, while you're doing a project, you may have certain teams. So, for example, you may have a testing team within, or let me just call it test as a team. You may also have a design as a team. So you can continue to have multiple teams within the agile planning phase. But this team is only an identifier. These are not separate teams. People come with specific skills. So the tasks that you want to assign, and if you want to track it based on teams, this is how you will do it. You also have areas where you can identify, let's say an area can be, let's say, a feature. For example, in Agile Webinar Mobile, I could look at the different platforms and want to define it as an area, so I can call it the iOS. Similarly, I can create a new team or a new area called Android. So it's just up to you how you define these teams and areas. Of course, you can continue to define now your iterations. So I can create a new iteration, and remember the first question about when will design happen? Excellent, where we will say design iteration. So this is for 14 days, or you can change the duration and say this is the first iteration that will happen. In the next iteration, you could say after I have done my design, which is my first iteration for 14 days, I want to go in and do something else, which is, let's say, after my database is designed, after my requirements have been met, I will actually do, let's say I will actually do well, just let's call it the iteration 1. So iteration 1 is when you will actually deliver the first increment. The deliverable from design iteration has to be something. And in our case, we will, let's say the output of design iteration is going to be the design artifacts or the design documents. Okay, so we talked about feedback and gathering more feedback. So the portal here is about, this is talking about portal, which is the feedback portal, and this talks about how to actually, if you want to have a feedback portal or not. So this is where you can set that up. You can just say portal is public, which means anybody with this URL will be able to access it. Or if portal is private, you can choose what people can do what. So I'm just going to leave this I'm going to just leave this portal as disabled for now. In the time tracking, you can actually add multiple types of work. You can add some general tasks. For example, if you wanted to include time for, let's say, research, or let's say this is somebody on a holiday, you want to include that also in the time tracking, you can add a general task as holiday. In the work type, if you, let's say, wanted to define additional work types apart from development like research, or let's say things like customer meetings, you can include all of them as specific work types. Depending on your scenario, you can feel free to create whatever is relevant for your team. Okay. Reporting is where you set how you want to create your reports. Do you want your burn down tasks on estimate or by task estimate or by task count and things like those? We'll take a look at this later. So there are some more settings that you can use here. So I'm going to save this. And in the final advanced settings, you will actually see that we are doing a configuration based setting. So this is the XML file, and everything that you've set till now is about done in this XML file. So I'm going to go back to the project, and these are the 3 projects. We are going to switch into one, and here we are going to look at some other settings. So for the project, you can see what are the users, the ones that we have set. Okay, we are going to see some more configurations. So we talked about custom fields, custom capabilities. Here are some other settings that you can do. You can choose authentication, you can choose export, and things like those. In the work item settings is where you will find custom fields. So what I'm going to do is there is already a retrospective, a custom field called retrospective that's been applied to all the projects on this server, and this is where it is indicated. So if in your case you wanted a new field added for your project, you could just say something, I don't know, it could be anything. So I'll just use you know a specific field called need a device. So this means that I am going to indicate that if a particular thing needs, an actual device to be had, so I can actually indicate that. I will use it in my own project. You're seeing multiple projects because I'm an administrator on the server, and I'm able to see all the projects that I have under my control. But the tool is intelligent enough to only show the specific items or projects for which a person has rights for. Okay, and from here, use for items of type. So if are you going to create a new story, are you going to create a new bug, risk, issue, feedback, what? So I'm going to say this is applicable to stories, bugs, risks, and issues. Well, okay, and then I can say apply, save, and close. So while need a device was never a feature of TeamPulse, or it was never a feature of the user story, you're able to add this whenever you wanted. So this is what you can do, and then you can do additional configurations on what can be the default value and things like those by choosing this modifying settings gear. All right. So with that, you can actually import the user stories if they are written in somewhere else. We have the capability to import them into the tool, and so on and so forth. So without getting too much into further settings, what I will do is actually start with looking at individual requirements and how we add a requirement. Now, as I have gone and clicked on work, the first view that you're getting is my perspective. If you see the 4 phases of this work that I said, it could be work, it could be planning, and it could be analyze. So this is how TeamPulse even looks at things. I have gone into work, and the first view that you're looking at is called the my perspectives view. Now, if you're looking at it and you're thinking, I never added any requirements. What are these things right here? Well, the tool itself actually thinks of you as a person who's involved in multiple projects. So if you look at this drop down, you will see that the new project that we created is not even selected. The one that is selected is Sitefinity LMS, which is another project. So we're going to untick this box, and we're going to check this box to say we only want details for this particular project. Now this is, if you think about it, while it may seem confusing to begin with, it's a very simple way of getting a view of all your tasks across all the projects. This means now your task list is not project-wise, but it's actually tuned to what you need. Okay, and that's what we've taken some time to think about and work on. So that's how it works. Now, in this view, you see that there is nothing that one has to do. There is nothing because there's nothing added. So one can begin by adding a new item by clicking on that big red button or an orange plus sign that was there. So when you're adding something new, it is asking you what project automatically selected, because that's what we have zeroed down to right now. It is going to tell you what is the bug. If it's you're going to enter a story or a bug, so let's say enter a story, and we will say the first story is to create a mock-up. So first thing we want to do is to create a mock-up. You can start assigning this because I currently am acting as a product owner. So I'm going to dedicate this to the developer ninja. I'm going to say, obviously it's not done, so I can't do much. I can raise an estimate, and agile estimation is a topic in itself which is really big. But let me just use a day as an example. Well, there are story points, and there are various ways of doing this estimation. But for now, I'll just use a simple methodology and call it estimate of 2 days. I think it is going to take 2 days. I think the iteration in which it should be done is the design iteration. The area is for this not applicable in this. It's not a retrospective. You don't need a device for this. And remember, these two items that you're looking at are are essentially the custom fields that we have added. And you can further go on and, think about this. Is it mature? Somewhat not mature. Is it certain? Absolutely certain. In terms of what is the complexity of it, it is standard. What is the value it will deliver? Well, these are the things that you set up when you chose a template. So all of this is configurable. These statuses that you're seeing are configurable by using the same XML that we had seen earlier. So I will just say save and close. All right. Now, in a second, this will come up. Where this is gone is, so currently I'm logged in as admin user, so it's definitely something that I have not been assigned to do. So I'm not seeing it in my perspective. But if you look at it, the same is available if you want to go into the backlog and see what all is available. All right, so here also if you see, nothing is evident because in the filters that I have applied, this is by the way what TeamPulse does by default. I want to see all iterations, past and future, and let's see then what it says. All right, so here it is, but it was never available when I looked at that backlog. Now here is a time to actually change or create a custom view. Now even before I did that, I can show you these are a lot of filters that you can use to create something, and you can even choose the columns that are occurring here. So let's say I'm not using the columns for, let's say, I'm not using the column for area, so I can remove the area completely and say apply. So this is where the mockup or create a mockup will come, and this is my backlog. Now I want to look at this. I want to look at this mockup and save this as something that is available for everybody to view. So I can say save as shared, and this is a project backlog, or let me call it the product backlog. This is available for everyone to see, and this will be shown under work, not plan, and I can save it. All right. So now, as even a person who whosoever logs in, he or she is able to see the product backlog right from the beginning. Now, I know we are running short of time. I'm going to go a little faster. This is the biggest story, and these are the details that you can work on. You can break down the task into different things. You can say choose prototyping tool, choose prototyping tool, estimate this, and then assigning. So you can continue to do these things. You can add your acceptance criteria. You can say the acceptance criteria is document with complete mockup. All right. So you can say anything that you want. It is completely open. You can choose if you have a template that you want to apply. You can do that. If you want to relate this story with another story, you can do that here. But since we only have one story, this is what it is. And if you wanted to see how the story has evolved, this is where all the history of all the changes are maintained. So if somebody else comes in later and adds some more detail, all of that will be available in the history. So I can say I have chosen proto.io for my, or I can say using proto.io create whatever, and I just want to just leave it like that. So this is automatically saved. You can add attachments and anything else that you wanted to. So all right, with that we have created our work. Now in the planning phase, what you can look at is creating or doing your iteration planning. Now when you're doing your iteration planning, it will show you all the iterations that you have created. As you can see, we created 2, design iteration and iteration 1. Similarly, you will need to create more iterations until the completion of the project. And in this case, since we've already assigned create a mockup, it is included here. But let's say we wanted to create another story, and we wanted to call it, let's say, login to the login to webinar. So this is the login functionality that we wanted to create. We have additionally gone ahead and assigned it to the developer ninja. Area, team does not matter, all that. I'm just going to create this quickly so that you can see what happens. So as you can see, currently it's not assigned anywhere. I can actually drag it and quickly drop it here to see what iteration I want people to work on. Now this is a view that's actually customizable as well. If you look at this slider here, this is showing you expanded view or a shorter view of things. So the moment you zoom in, so this is where I'm zooming in, you're able to see more and more detail. So with this level of detail, you can see who it is assigned to, what is the task estimate for the same, what is the ID of the requirement, and if I go absolutely zoomed out, you'll see actually the status of what it is. All right, so I can, this is how we are going to plan. Now, in the shared view, you always think about retrospective and reviews, but let me just go back and show you something which is analysis. As the iterations of the project progresses, you will be able to see these iteration statuses, and then I had shown you an expanded view of that. You'll actually see all of these burn downs that are there. We chose by task count the burn down earlier. That's what you're seeing. The other options available are task work remaining, task estimate, and so on and so forth. And you can actually go ahead and look at this. When you have multiple projects, you can actually take a look at what is going on. So this has been a quick whirlwind view of what the tool is, but let me again quickly switch back to the slide deck and show you where we were. So we were at the product backlog. You saw how it is to be done, adding a new product backlog, breaking it down into tasks, and also adding a new acceptance criteria. Now you've seen how the sprint will begin. For one iteration, you will have specific stories to work on, and in the sprint every day people will work. They will update what they have done. They will move the story status from done to in progress to whatever else is there, and so on and so forth. This is done at any time a developer has finished his work, and ultimately leading to a shippable product increment at the end of the sprint. Now we've seen that while you can have multiple items, you are free to drag and drop. We didn't see that, but essentially when you see your backlog, you can actually just drag and drop your stories to indicate which is of a higher priority. So the items on the top are of higher priority. You could plan your iterations, you could schedule them, and then you can decompose your work into tasks. So each story is broken down into individual tasks. Now, after this has happened, the sprint ultimately comes down to doing a review. And once an increment is produced, the team actually goes and shows whatever they have done to the product owner, and this is called a sprint review, where the product owner actually looks at the work that is currently done by the team. And once the review is complete, they also do something called a retrospective. A retrospective is what went well in the last sprint and what we can do to improve that in the coming sprint. So that is what we call the the sprint retrospective. We have talked about the daily Scrum meeting. This is the meeting which is a huddle of people for about 15 minutes every day, where people talk about what they did, if they are having any impediments. It's where people share what they have achieved and what they hope they can get some help on. So this is something which is a daily activity and a continuous activity, which is managing work from started to approved to committed. All that is an activity that the team member is supposed to do as he goes, or he or she is working on any item. Some people may think of daily Scrum activity or daily Scrum as an activity where they update their tasks, but essentially it's a task that gets just updated anytime a developer finishes it. At the daily Scrum, he says he may just indicate that he's finished it and the team may just be made aware of this. But with TeamPulse, you have the activity stream to actually show you that as well. So some of the items available to a person for his maintaining his work simply is the My Perspective, My Task board, and the other boards that you saw that are available on the TeamPulse tool. Agile test management is also possible through TeamPulse, but this is, we kind of will go on from here. We'll not discuss this in detail. There is capability for acceptance criteria, traceability, bug management also there, but we didn't see the bugs at all, so we'll not kind of go through it. So sprint review we've talked about, which is about about showing what was done ultimately in a sprint. This is typically for about 4 hours after a 1 month sprint. In a sprint retrospective, the team goes back and sees what they did well, what they didn't do well. This is approximately an 8 hours activity that is promoted or advocated for a 1 month sprint. Okay, this is retrospective. So what you can do is you can store retrospectives in TeamPulse. You can capture it as a simple story, and using the custom field that we saw, you can actually create that retrospective and have a view of the retrospective. So it is available for viewing at any time. So now let's quickly look at some of the matrices that you may have in the meeting. So this is probably what you are going to need. You're going to need a real-time burndown chart. You're going to need a burn down across all your projects. This is the first thing that we saw, and remember I said this is what we are trying to get to. You may have your storyboards, you may have your task boards, and then you may even have your timesheets. So using all these different tools, you're able to track your progress in your project. We also have some Scrum matrices. We've already talked about the burn down. Burn down is nothing but the remaining tasks over a period of time. So if you had 100 units of work left on day 0, you're expected to have, let's say, 0 task on the end of your particular project. So you can think of the burn down as a graphical chart where the remaining tasks are indicated as per the time progresses, and that is actually also called team velocity. How many units of work is team capable of delivering? So that is pretty much what we had to cover. We will quickly summarize what we learned today, and in case there are some more questions that you have, we can take a look at that. These are the Scrum artifacts, or some of the artifacts that are available in the Scrum methodology, which is a product backlog. The product backlog contains user stories. You need to estimate. It's a topic that we haven't even touched today. There is going to be the need to enter tasks and acceptance criteria. You can continue to include the product backlog, or you can include to have items like issues, risks, bugs in the product backlog as well. The product backlog is triaged, and then you have a small section of the backlog called the sprint backlog. Now, after the sprint backlog is done, you're ultimately going to be producing a product increment. In terms of some of the ceremonies we have looked at today, there is sprint planning, there is daily Scrum, there is sprint review, and there is sprint retrospective. We've already talked about it in the past, but in case you have, this is just a recapitulation of everything that we did in the past 1 hour. So with that, I have come to an end of what I had to present. In case there are any more questions, I'm going to quickly take a look at that, but this is where the presentation for today ends. I'm going to quickly take a look at what all options are, what all questions have been put for me right now. And as I'm looking at the questions, I also have one or two questions for you, depending on to ascertain what is the usage of the project or the usage of agile tools in your company. So there's a quick quiz that I have just put up for you right now. The quiz is about what are the tools that you're currently using for project management or agile project management. Do help us with this information so that we can further improve our presentations in the future. All right, so I'm going to leave this open. I'm also taking a look at some of the questions that are there. All right, I'm going to review the questions now. So the one question is XML the data source for this tool? I understand that there is no database required then. Well, TeamPulse requires, or it does require a database for its installation. You're free to use SQL Server or SQL Server Express. The XML that you saw was only meant for configuring your projects, or it was a template that was provided to TeamPulse to render the project functioning. So the XML was only meant for that. All right, so we have the results also for the poll. Almost 30% of you have said that you are using Excel or MS Project for your use. So that's brilliant. It has been a great tool. You've mentioned TFS, Jira as other sources of information that is, or other tools that are being used in the organization. So again, that is wonderful. And 20% of you have said that you are using whiteboards or walls of the office. Great. So this is great information, and 20% of you have still mentioned the use of any other tools. So this is great. A lot of TFS users here. So the good thing is TFS has great capabilities, and working with TeamPulse, we are able to import and export your work items. We are able to import your bugs and everything that exists within TeamPulse. All right, so I have one final poll for you, and I'm going to keep looking at the questions. The poll should be coming up now. One of the questions is, one of the comments in fact is, there is not going to be one design iteration since it is going to be an iterative development model. Would there be a design iteration in middle of sprint since there will be changes to existing designs? Again, excellent question, Mr. Narayanan. You're right that there is no single design time. That's what I also iterated when this question was put to me about design iterations, or when do we do the design. It's actually good to begin the project with making some architectural choices. So are you going to use web? Are you going to use .NET with web, or are you going to use JSP or PHP if you're going to do web development? If you're going to do mobile development, are you going to develop for iOS? Are you going to develop for Android? Are you going to develop for BlackBerry or for Windows Phone or for all of them? Are you going to choose hybrid, or you're going to choose native? So these are some of the decisions that need to be made right up front before even the project kicks off. So this design iteration is actually something, it could be, I actually call it sprint zero, where these decisions are actually collated and put together. So your project or your product owner sits down and says, oh, I'm writing my requirements in this sprint, but then these are the architectural choices that we are going to make for the entire project. As and when functionality is defined, which means the stories are put in, the team itself will design how an individual component should be architected. Should it be, let's say, using a separate business logic layer and a separate UI layer? Should it be MVVM driven, or should it be a direct link to the database somehow? So those architectural decisions or design decisions can be made in the iteration itself. Now, if you wanted a sub-iteration within an iteration, that's also possible. So if your iteration was a 1 month iteration, and in that you also wanted to include a 1 month iteration, a 1 week iteration for, let's say, architecting for login in iOS, another week for doing login in Android, another week for doing in Windows Phone 8. That is something that is wonderful based on functionality. Any other way, you may be, again, going against the spirit of Agile.